Hey guys, Armandos here. So this time I'll finally make the review over the new Cyber Dragon structure deck, and since there are only 5 cards, I'll simply go over them, explain my opinion about them, and I'll simply talk on whether they are usable in the deck or not. So the first card is going to be Cyber Dragon Core. This card is amazing. It sets up so many plays in this deck, and it's one of the best cards in the entire structure deck. Its effect is when this card is normal summoned, add one Cyber or Cybernetic spell or trap card from the deck to the hand. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can banish this card from the graveyard, special summon one Cyber Dragon monster from your deck. You can only use one Cyber Dragon Core effect per turn, and only once the turn, this card's name becomes Cyber Dragon while it's on the field or in the graveyard. So in general, you'd usually want to search for the Cyber Repair Plant or the Cyber Network, which are simply the only good Cyber or Cybernetic spell or trap cards that also come on the Cyber Dragon structure deck. And other than that, this card is amazing. It lets you spatial summon itself by banishing itself, which means that you can easily take in Inferno Reckless Summon to simply spatial summon whatever you'd like from the deck or graveyard. And since it lets you search for another searcher that lets you search for itself again, you can make some sort of decent loop that lets you deck in and search for whatever you'd like, while also maintaining a lot of advantage. So in general, I honestly think that this card is the best card in the entire structure deck. The second card that has been released in this structure deck is Cyber Dragon Dray. This card isn't really amazing, it's somewhat nice, it has a nice synergy with the Cyber Network, and that's pretty much it. When this card's effect is when this card is normal summoned, you can have the levels of all Cyber Dragons you currently control become 5. You cannot spatial summon any monsters during the turn you activate this effect except machine type monsters. If this card is banished, target one Cyber Dragon you control. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects until the end of this turn. This card's name becomes Cyber Dragon while it's on the field or in the graveyard. So, like some of the Cyber Dragons, it's simply a Cyber Dragon that has some sort of an effect. People usually run this card simply because it lets you go for the Cyber Dragon Nova, which is a new Cyber Dragon Xyz monster that I'll be talking about later on. And mostly its protection effect is somewhat nice, but it's not that easy to trigger. Mostly you trigger it by using the Cyber Network, and that's pretty much it. The fact that it limits you to simply using machine type monsters on the same turn you've activated this card's effect makes this card not as good as it could be, and due to that I think that this card is nice, but it's not what the Cyber Dragons actually needed, because stuff like Constellar Pleiades or Volcasaurus or the Crystal Zero Lancer are pretty much better boss monsters for this deck, and otherwise you'd usually just fusion summon. So this card is nice. I'd run triple of this card simply because there aren't too many good Cyber Dragon monsters, but this card could have easily been better by simply making some sort of another limitation, like skipping a battle phase or another thing, because I honestly think that as of now this card isn't really amazing. The next card that I will be talking about will be Cyber Repair Plant. It's a new normal spell card that can be searched by Cyber Dragon Core. It has 2 effects. The first effect of this card is add one light machine type monster from your deck to the hand, and the second effect is target one light machine type monster in your graveyard. Shuffle that target into your deck, and to activate this card's effect you need to have some sort of a condition met. The condition is if Cyber Dragon is in your graveyard, you can activate one of this card's effects, and if you happen to have 3 or more Cyber Dragons in the graveyard, you can activate both of this card's effects. So in general, this card is amazing. It lets you have plenty of consistency, and you can easily recycle stuff. So simply by using this card and Cyber Dragon Core, you have some sort of loopable search that lets you search for one another and deducting by that, and also maintaining some sort of advantage. So in general, this card is simply amazing. It's not as good as Cyber Dragon Core, but once again, it's one of the better cards in the entire structure deck. And the one card before the last one is Cyber Network. This card is insanely stupid. I honestly don't understand why Konami even created that card. It's pretty much a Cyber Dragon return from the different dimension, but unlike the other one, this card actually sets up itself, and I know that it has a lot of drawbacks, but since this card is searchable, I honestly think that Konami made a huge mistake by actually creating this card. So I'll simply go over the effect and explain whatever I think that Konami should have actually done. So this card's effect is destroy this card during your third standby phase after activation, once per turn. If Cyber Dragon is on the field, you can banish one light machine type monster from your deck. When this card on the field is sent to the graveyard, special summon as many of your banished light machine type monsters as possible and destroy all spell or trap cards you control. Those monsters cannot activate their effects. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. So this card is pretty much a huge OTKer. I know that it limits you to not conducting your battle phase on the same turn you've activated this card's effect, but since you can easily destroy this card on the opponent's turn by activating a Mystical Space Typhoon or whatever you feel like, this card's drawback isn't really that bad. You can easily OTK the opponent by simply activating this card, setting up the right condition by having some sort of huge amount of banished machine type monsters, and simply destroy this card by using whatever you'd like on the opponent's turn, and that way you'd gain a huge amount of advantage and you'd be able to OTK the opponent on your next turn easily. So I honestly think that the entire point of this card is really stupid. The fact that this card is searchable is even more stupid, and honestly Konami has made a huge mistake around this card. They should have actually made another limitation or some sort of another limitation that would have limited the player to simply having to skip the battle phase of his next turn as well as the current one. That way I could somewhat agree for this card's existence, but as of now I honestly think that this card is stupid, and since Cyber Dragons aren't really that amazing, it won't really get a hit. But I think that cards like this one actually deserve to simply be forbidden for as long as the game is alive. And the only drawback that I really find this card to actually promote is that the opponent can actually control whenever the card will leave the field by simply destroying this card on their turn. And if they happen to have a Chimera Tech fusion in their extra deck, they could easily abuse the fact that you are actually forced to special summon as many of your light machine type monsters. So that way they can easily simply get rid of all of your monsters and special summon a 5k beater. So that's the only thing that somewhat balances this card, but in general this card is insanely stupid, and If this card will see some sort of abuse in the future, I honestly hope that this card will simply be forbidden. And the last card to actually be on the structure deck is the Cyber Dragon Nova, which is a rank 5 Xyz monster. It requires 2 level 5 monsters, machine type ones, and its effect is once per turn you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, then target 1 Cyber Dragon in your graveyard, special summon that target. So its first effect is nice. Its secondary effect is once per turn, during either player's turn you can banish 1 Cyber Dragon from your hand or face up from your monster card zone. This card gains 2100 attack until the end phase, so this card pretty much becomes a huge beater, and it has some sort of nice synergy with Cyber Dragon Ray. That way you can protect this card. And its last effect is if this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 machine type fusion monster from your extra deck. And since the special summon isn't really treated as a fusion summon, you can special summon plenty of stuff, which is really nice and lets you OTK the opponents really easily. I think that this card is cute. It doesn't really promote too much for the deck, as most of the Cyber Dragon players would rather OTK the opponent with Power Bond and using stuff like Cyber Twin Dragon or limit removal, but it's nice to have another option, and it's usually the only target for the Cyber Dragon Ray whenever you've activated its first effect to make every Cyber Dragon on the field level 5. So that's pretty much it for the entire structure deck. The rest of the cards are actually already released in the TCG and the OCG, and actually Konami has released another card that is a new cybernetic spell card, but it doesn't really come on the structure deck, at least not on the OCG one. And since this card is insanely bad, I don't really think that people should run it. It's a cybernetic fusion support, my bad. Its effect is that by paying half of your life points, you can pretty much use any fusion spell card as pretty much a miracle fusion one. So I honestly don't really think that losing half your life points is really something that people should do for a fusion summon, especially because this card actually requires you to have another fusion spell card, and it doesn't really fusion summon by its own, so it's really bad, and I don't really understand what's the point of actually making this card. But who knows, maybe one day it will be abusable. I don't really see that as of now, but who knows, maybe in the future Konami will release something that will break that card. So that's pretty much it for the entire interview. I guess that I'll start making those more often, because I want to finish all of the Legacy of the Valiant reviews and the Gear Gia and Lightsworn support and some of the Primal Origin spoilers. So like usual, I'll pretty much end it right now. So guys, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment, and see you guys next time.